All right, back in the garage. Feels like it's been forever. Back on my main car. I feel like I've been cheating on my GT3 with my Z06 Mistress. And so I'm back on the GT3. This is a 991.2, so 2019. I've done nothing to it. I've washed it once. I haven't detailed it. I haven't put any parts on it. I haven't put a radar detector in it yet. And so we got some work to do. And so I can't wait any longer. I got an exhaust, and I figured I'd talk you through what's going on here, why we're doing this one, and we're going to do the install. I'll have some follow-up videos and some flybys, but I'm excited to finally get an exhaust on this car because it's no fun riding around in grandpa mode. So if you're not familiar with me or my channel, I really kind of got started on YouTube by modifying and detailing and washing my 911 Carrera S, which then very quickly left and was replaced by a 991.1, so a 2014 GT3. That was my blue one. And one of the things that bothered me most on the GT3 was the exhaust. You know, such a great sounding car, but the goofy valves drive me crazy. You know, so I'd have the valves opening and closing all the time, and so I really wanted to figure out how we could change that. Because Sharkworks and GMG had an exhaust option, but all they did was took their 997 exhaust, their bypass, and put it on a .1, and everything just kind of worked. And so a bypass would look a lot just like this section. And so I chased through working with FED Brombacher and M&M in Germany. We tried a bunch of different exhausts. I tried the Sharkworks, the GMG, the Chris Smith Racing. So I figured I've had about 14 different variants of exhausts on my cars, on my 3 GT3s over the last 5 years. And so this one here is kind of the culmination of that. I've narrowed it down. There are 2 exhausts that I highly recommend, and I'm actually going to have both of them on this car. This is the inexpensive, simple version, and I'll explain that as we install it. And then there is the ultimate version, which is, I think, the Dundon exhaust. But the Dundon is just not practical for everybody, in that you're going to spend a lot more on it. But you will make quite a bit more power. This exhaust, I would argue, is arguably the best sounding version. And so what it's made up of is side muffler deletes and a center muffler delete, and we retain the factory headers. Where Dundon has an advantage is that they have headers. But again, a much more expensive option. So this is called the AWE SwitchPath. They do offer a bypass option. I don't like bypasses on this car. I think it's simple, it's easy, but you still hold on to all that weight, those big giant side mufflers on the car. And so this, to me, is the best sounding version of the exhaust. The Dundon sounds very similar. It's the most, probably again, the most sophisticated from a tuning perspective. You'll gain horsepower with that version, but you know, quite a bit more expensive, quite a bit more work. So if you're looking for something that's costs you a little bit more than a bypass, simple bypass, and you end up with a really great exhaust, just know it's going to be pretty nasty, and we'll show you why, because we're removing a whole lot of metal and putting some very simple piping back on the car. So I opted for the diamond black version of the tips. You know, they look okay. They'll actually get a little bit of a kind of a titanium rainbow effect to them once they heat up for the first time. But the level of nasty that this exhaust creates, I think it suits the personality of this car. If I'm going to drive this big, wide, loud car, I want it to be really loud, and but I don't want it to be obnoxious. I don't want it to be so loud that it's going to annoy me inside the cabin. I want it to annoy other people outside of the car, but not me in it. So that's why I think this is such a great combination. All right, so let's start. I'm going to take the wheels off and start taking this thing apart. So here's what this kit comes with. We've got AccuSeal, which I prefer these type of clamps. So we've got our AccuSeal clamps. We'll have
several of these. We've got the center delete, because the way the GT3 exhaust works is you have headers, so 2 headers with 3 collectors on each, 3 outlets, because it's a straight 6 on each side. So 2 sets of headers, left and right. Then you have a cat, a big high flowing catalytic converter. And then from there you've got these giant chambered side mufflers. And then you have a center muffler, which is titanium. The other parts are stainless, but the center section is titanium. I'm never going to have an issue with it blowing apart, but if you are a heavy track user, you'll end up grenading your center muffler, likely. So the AWE is going to leave the headers, leave the cats, so everything from the cat back is going to be replaced with, so this replaces, you'll see in a minute here, but the giant side mufflers, and then this will then obviously connect here to the center muffler, so this deletes the center muffler. So this makes it basically from the cats outward. Bypassed version, or I guess you would call it when the valves are closed, the larger piping, the larger section is closed and it passes through the smaller section. So you either end up with that, or you end up with basically a wide open exit from the cats out. Stop saying frickin' straight piped. You sound like a moron. Tight pipes are curved. There's a curve in it. It's not straight. Stop saying that.
You get too literal, man. A straight pipe my car. How about that?
Shut up, Bryce. I don't know why that bothers me so much, but it does. So I'm going to experiment on installing this, and I might skip bolting this to the chassis and let it float. One of the problems with it bolting to the chassis is that I found that I was getting a vibration on my 2016 GT3. So I'm gonna, when I do this install, I'm not gonna bolt these on and see what happens. A lot of the center bypasses don't bolt to the chassis, so we're gonna try it and see how it goes. So there's a full kit, really rather simple. So you can see install is gonna be rather simple as well. So the magic of a GT3 or any Porsche over pretty much any other car I've ever touched is how wonderfully these things they take them apart and put them back together. It's just, you'll see. I mean, if you take a rear bumper off a BMW, lining it up, and BMWs are great, but a lot of cars just don't go back together the same way they came apart. So we need a T30, I think. So we have to take the lights off first. Those are a T20, and then the rest is a T30. The last exhaust I had on my .1 that I traded in for this was the AWE, this particular exhaust. But what I had before that, which I think is the best overall exhaust, is the Dundon, but I had the Dundon Race. And the problem with the Dundon Race on a white car is that this whole area started to yellow. I guess any color car would start to yellow. And so that's why I switched to something simpler to kind of hold me over between doing the Dundon Street setup and my friends at AWE asked me to try out their exhaust, and now I'm torn because I love them both. They're my 2 favorite exhausts on this car. If you're doing just the center bypass, I mean, any of them are decent enough. The GMG is probably the nastiest, and then you've had a lot of companies copy GMG as well on their design. Maybe they've licensed it, I'm not sure. But Sharkworks is also a good version, good option. But you have different variants where you could disconnect the valves to help with the valve transition. I found that the best exhaust with disconnected valves would be Sharkworks. If the valves bothered you the most, I found that obviously the most power, the most sophisticated is coming from Dundon, the Dundon version. JCR has been competing with Dundon here as of late as well in the making power, or supposedly making power. I haven't had the JCR, and said that I don't like internet exhaust, and I've talked about JCR, and the reason I call them an internet exhaust is because they've just done some really douchey marketing, like tagging me and Adam and everything that they did, and just, I don't know, I just don't like it when people do that kind of stuff. So I've avoided that exhaust. I don't think it's necessary. The Dundon is pretty legit. But this AWE is the best of both worlds, because you get the nastiness of a full exhaust, but at a price point of, what do I think this is, $2,800 or $2,900. You know, on a GT3, that's pretty inexpensive. And so I think that this is a really viable option in the world of GT car exhausts. 1, 2, 3, 4. And so now the lights, they slide out. Just be careful not to smack it on anything. Should slide right out. You just don't want it to.
Free to launch this thing.
Yeah, I don't want to launch it across the room. There we go. So you can see, super simple to disassemble. So when I originally bought this car, in 2014, I was so afraid, man, I'd never be able to work on my Porsche. I'd have to take it to the shop or take it to the dealer. And it's actually quite counter to that. This is the easiest car to work on of any car that I've ever owned. It's just so well engineered that everything that comes off of it pops right back into place the way you took it off, as long as you take a little bit of care and time. Okay, so now there's two T30s on the side here. When I do get a giant garage, I am convinced now that I need a workbench of some sort. So there's another bolt right here. T30 that holds everything together. So there's like a little guide pin here that gets the bumper all lined up. And so you don't have to worry about when you take this car apart. You don't have to, as long as you follow my lead here, if you're going to do an exhaust yourself. But I think even if you have basic, hand tools, you don't need a lift to do this. It certainly makes it easier if you have a lift, but I think anybody can do this. This is a really simple thing to do. Okay, there's some on the bottom, there's some up under here. So this is where taking the wheels off would make it a little easier, but I'm gonna leave the wheels on. Okay, so there are 3 T30s here. So what I'm using is a little 1/4 inch. And this is where if you took the wheels off, you could get in here and see a little bit easier. But I think it's not worth the time to take the wheels off just for this, when you could theoretically rather easily get these off. It just makes it hard to reach and hard to see. So if you're not familiar, if you're a GT car, if you're a Porsche guy and you haven't watched any of my videos, and you haven't seen a lot of the detailing stuff that I do, ScanGrip, these line lights will change your darn life, man. They're so good. Yeah, click the, we'll put it in the cards, click up in the right hand corner. Yeah, this is a T25, and then I think there's one behind here too. It's been a while since I've had the bumper off. Okay, so I need a 25. I don't remember it being a different size, but I guess it is. I can show you later, but I actually ran over the long one that's under the car we'll be using for this project, but I ran it over on the lift, like on this. It wasn't even on a flat. If you ran over on a flat surface, it wouldn't do anything. I ran it over where it was bent sideways and still barely put a dent in it. So the little one has the little line light R, has 2 lights. We got one more. I think that's on the T25 there. So you pull back this little fender liner, you get access to the last one. So there's 4. I'll point them out in a second here. There you go. And that is a 25. I think. Might be a 30. No, it is a 30. So only one of them is a 25. Yeah, so the top one. So there's one, if you come over on this side. So there's one, let me grab the light. So there's one here, where is it? There's one right here. I know you can't really see that, but just, there's one here, one here. Those are T30s. Then there's a T25 right here. And then up in here is a T30. Gosh, can't wait to get proper PPF on this thing. It's his janky job that whoever did it before. I feel like I'm finally at the point now where I can do this and not mess anything up. I should keep my mouth shut on that, but I'm in love with these Sonic tools, man. They're so good. Okay, so get this off. We just got to take the last ones off the bottom, and then the bumper's ready to come off. Take the rest of these T30s off the bottom. Let's go back up, and then we got one here. You could obviously use electric and air tools, but these are so simple that it's not really necessary. This is why it's good to have gloves, because this area gets all dirty. 3 on each side, 6 total. I'm gonna set these right here. Got screws everywhere. Okay, ready to take the bumper off. And this is a rather easy one-man job. You can do it by yourself with relative ease. There's 3 more that I forgot to take off. You'd think I'd have this all figured out since I've had these bumpers off like 10 times. Yeah. Okay. Now we're gonna have one we need to detach for the license plate. So this has to come off. That's off. That's off. Same thing over here. No, I think this disconnects up here. Let's see. This car is a backup camera. But the last 2 cars I had didn't. So, actually, it's probably easier to just pop this whole thing off. Pop that out. And this guy. It should just pull out. There we go. Okay. So this thing, you just have to push on this. Just push on that right there. Pull that out. So now we're all detached. Now the bumper can come off. See, one-man job. Nice and easy. And we'll just set that aside. There we go. So now we need to take these heat shields off, take the bumper off to expose all of this area. Before I do that, I want to check the filters since I'm in here, make sure they're clean. So this is a T15. I need to go buy a new 3/8. I need to buy a new 3/8 thing for my Milwaukee so I can make quicker work of this stuff. So these, I believe, at least the last gen came with BMC filters that are cleanable oiled filters. But the car only has 1,700 miles on it, so I don't think we'll have any issues. But since we got this open, we might as well look at it. Just check it out. Looks good. Nice and fresh. Ooh, good thing we did that. Look at all those rocks in there. Let's clean this out. that's why you clean out your filters. So this is probably why Porsche's procedure is to, they have you replace the filters, but I don't think there's any need to do that, because the intakes allow all this junk to get in there. We're gonna blow these out. So we can also use this, which is our detailing tool. Let's get the rocks out. I'm glad we did this. I was thinking this was gonna be a waste of time, but so now it's very clear why on the RS, Porsche's procedure is to replace these. I think there's no need to replace them. I think you just need to clean them up. Dang it. Got some of them eyeball apparently. Okay, so there's 3 10s. Obviously don't need a long one for this, but there's a really long one. There's one that's deeper in the car. So we need to take all these side pieces off in order to get to the side mufflers, to be able to get them out. I'm sure you could probably pry the heat shielding back, but we don't want to do that if we can help it. It's just a little 10. So there's 3 of those. I think there's one in here. That's another little 10. It's either 10 or T30, either or works. I know you're gonna be yelling at me for using an extension this long. I'm just getting lazy on you. I know it seems like a lot of parts, but I'm telling you, do it once, it's really not bad. Loose, loose. Let me take the bumper off. This will come out. Okay, so these are 13s. You obviously don't need something this big, but I don't have a 3/8 that I need. Third one up here. And this is super light, it's aluminum, so it slides right out. It only weighs a few pounds tops. So there's our titanium muffler. And we'll talk about what we're gonna remove here in a second. I feel like there's something holding this on. Well, that's right, that doesn't need to come off. There's one more T25 up there. More of these little guys. Oh, I'm here. Jeez. There we go. So that comes off. So you got one here, one here. You got all these ones that we took off earlier on the inside. You've got the 2 10 mils up here. You got the other T30 here. You've got a T15, or sorry, T25, T25, and then you got one inside here, and then you got one here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Yeah, 12 screws you got to take out. Screws, nuts, all kinds of stuff. So let's clean that out. Take this. A little OptiClean. Shop towels. Might as well have our intake box clean. Shoot. Might be worthwhile to stick a vacuum in there. So many rocks. All right, let's put this back together, get this junk out of the way. Nice clean filters. I'm gonna get so much more horsepower now that I'm clean. So I probably will replace these every, like when I do the, maybe if I do it every 12,000 miles or something. Clean them anytime I'm in here. For when I have the 15 different exhausts on this car. I think Dundon has been developing a new intake for this, so I'd be down for that. So obviously this is plastic, you don't want to get crazy on this. A nice little impromptu air intake cleaning while we're doing our exhaust. Never hurts. I love to go through all these little procedures, like with cleaning the car and doing whatever little modifications make sense to me when I get it, and then I know everything's sorted. It's part of the reason why I think I want to moderate the amount of cars that I have and try to keep that under control, because otherwise you never really get to experience the car as much. If you have too many of them, you never get to do this kind of stuff. But I know to many people, this is too far. Cleaning the air intake with a towel is not something that most people are gonna do. But see what I'm saying? How darn easy this car is to work on? It's freaking awesome. Okay, now let's do the exhaust. Let me clean up a little bit and we'll start working on that. All right, so we'll start with taking the center muffler out. So I'm gonna loosen these all. I like to do these by hand rather than with the wrench. That way I can kind of feel it. I don't want to mess up the, need a wobble on that. Like I don't want to stretch these bolts. I want to keep them fresh. That way when I inevitably do sell the car, chances are I'm not going to be leaving an aftermarket exhaust on it. But what I've done in the past also is drop the whole exhaust all out at once. I'm going to take this one apart. So here is, I guess I haven't explained this. So here's our center muffler, right? And so we're going to delete this. And so what most bypasses do is they bypass this. So you maintain these big 40-pound pieces of steel on the sides, and you just swap this out. And you don't really need to take the whole bumper off, the bumper cover, in order to do this. You could do it underneath without taking it off if you wanted to. But this piece here on the RS is titanium and titanium tips. And so we're going to be replacing this with obviously the center section. So Sharkworks, GMG, Chris Smith, Graham Rahal, all of them do just this. Fab Speed, everybody, AWE, everybody has a center muffler delete, which does give you some more sound, but it certainly doesn't do anything else. It doesn't drop any weight. In fact, a lot of them probably add weight to the car over the stock titanium muffler. But it does give you a little amplitude, but it won't do anything with the valves. And so what you could do, if you wanted, you could just take this vacuum line right here and just pull it off and get rid of it. Or just plug it with something. So you could do that, but then some of them, like the GMG, drones quite a bit if you do that. The Sharkworks actually sounds pretty good if you do that. I think it sounds better. And so the nice thing about it is you get rid of the valve transition. Because no matter what YouTube video you watch from somebody who doesn't know jack about this car, when you press the valve button, it doesn't do squat. All it does is change the valve operation at idle. So it should be loose enough. You don't have to take these, you don't have to back these all the way out. So again, no matter what you hear some goofball talking about, the valve operation in this car is really odd. They're just there for drone. I mean, they're there for no other purpose. I've done dyno testing, doing valves connected, disconnected. The valves, you actually lose a little bit of power with regular valve operation versus having them disconnected down low. They're not there for back pressure, some other bullcrap that your daddy told you that they're there for. That's not true. It's not the case. And so they're there purely for sound. And so in all my testing, I found it necessary to have the valves in almost all applications, with the exception of maybe the Sharkworks, which is tiny. The Sharkworks is just 2 tiny little pipes. So it's certainly not making any power, maybe even losing a little. I found the Sharkworks didn't really do much. There was no power gain, there was not really any power loss. But, you know, the valves are there to make sure you're not droning. You have this boomy drone on the highway, or when you're driving around town. You don't want that. But you still have these big, giant, really hot side mufflers right next to your tire. So getting the weight off of the back of the car is one of the big advantages, I think, of doing an exhaust on a GT3. And obviously the sound, it makes it sound louder and it's more fun that way. Okay, so those are loose. So that should pull out. Now we need to loosen the brackets on the side mufflers as well. And we're gonna loosen these are, I think, 6mm hex. You gotta be real careful with these because these will break. So I'm gonna spray a little bit of PB Blast on those, because these clamps are like $100 and something a piece. So if you don't want to damage those clamps if you can help it, because we're gonna be reusing those clamps on the AWE. Just have a little thing of Freol here that somebody gave me. I just want to get some on the threads, keep it from getting jacked up. Set that aside. A couple of towels to wipe the excess. So again, we have headers here, you know, coming up under. Then we have O2 sensor, which we're, you know, going to mess with those on this exhaust. Cat goes into side muffler, and the side muffler has a chamber. And so when the valves are closed, notice when the valves are open, the exhaust gas basically goes straight out. Some of it still comes out the smaller top area, but this is all tuned for sound and resonance and drone and things like that. And so this whole chamber here, I don't know if it's an anechoic or anechoic chamber? Is that how you?
Where they test like microphones.
Yeah, but there's a chamber in here. Maybe it's not a Helmholtz resonator, but it's some sort of resonating device where the exhaust comes in here, bounces around, and then exits out this smaller tube on the top. So you can see that's rather inefficient. And so the way that the car is designed is when under load at, like, say 3,700 RPMs, the valves will open. So the way it works is, let's say I'm sitting at idle. I can press the exhaust button and it will open and close. So if I press the button and it's red, it turns it on, the valves open at idle. And then when I press the button again, it'll close. And so, but what happens is, no matter if the button's closed or on or off, or the valves are open or closed, as soon as you leave, as soon as the car starts moving, the valves always close, whether the button's pushed or not. So the valves close, the exhaust passes through here. So when you start to accelerate, so it's, say, somewhere between 3,000 and 4,000 RPMs, depending on how much load, the valves will open automatically and allow the exhaust to flow. You know, basically, it's not straight through. But notice you do have a little bit of a, you know, like kind of a inefficient setup here. But they have some, you know, there's clearly some engineering on how the exhaust gases would flow. But there's still some bouncing around up here in the muffler, even with the, you know, even when the valves are open. And so you have this opening, closing all the time on the valves, which is really annoying. And it's a pretty pronounced transition on this stock exhaust. And so what we're going to do is we're going to get rid of this whole chamber here, which drops a lot of weight. And you know, so, but we'll still have the same path. It's just that we have some shinier pipes that aren't as big and bulky as this thing. Okay, so we're going to loosen this. And I'll probably loosen the bracket on the back here too, so I can loosen the side muffler. That'll loosen this up, and then we can drop the center muffler out and then address each of the side mufflers. So let me get the 6mm, I think it is. So these especially, you want to use a ratchet. Yeah, that's a 6mm. 6mm. Okay, so let's loosen these up. I've broken several of these and had to buy new ones, and they're really expensive. So if you do the Dundon exhaust, Dundon, you're going to be removing the headers because they're replacing the header with a new header and a new cat. If you did the catted version. I actually still have the race version upstairs, and I have a whole nother stock exhaust upstairs too. I should probably sell. So we're just going to kind of pull that back a little bit and pull it out of the way. Yeah, we're still going to want to loosen the bracket here as well on the side mufflers. So if you were just going to do a bypass, you'd want to loosen these, and you probably don't need to remove them completely. And then you want to loosen this bracket right here, this bracket that holds the side muffler, just so there's enough room to kind of pull it out of the way. If you're doing like a Sharkworks bypass or GMG or something like that. Another advantage is taking these off, so I'll clean them up real nicely and put them back in there. Let's just loosen these up a little bit here while we're at it. So these straps hold the center muffler in place. We're going to leave the tips on the car, I think. So notice from the factory, none of these are like super tight. I don't think you need any free-all on these. I've never had an issue with these breaking. We won't be reusing these on the AWE. Actually, I think I'm just going to pull these off. I'll leave just a little bit left. Okay, so those are loosened up that they were really not doing anything. So I might be able to get it out without loosening those brackets here. We're still going to end up taking those brackets off, but we need to get enough in order to slide this out. Yeah, so I'm going to take, I think they're 13. Yeah, it's a 13 mil. I'll just take a little, I think this will fit up in here. A ratchet and wrench. These only take like a half a turn. Especially when they're fresh and new like this car is. I'm just taking a little 13 off. There's two of them, one at the top, one at the bottom. It just takes a couple of turns, and then if your car has less than, say, 5,000 miles on it, you're doing this. You shouldn't have anything that's too mangled. We're not going to be putting these back on. These brackets will be coming off and staying off. Yeah, I need to be careful. I'm going to leave that one on so it doesn't fall on my foot. Yeah, I'm going to take these side ones off completely. That way I don't damage the donut gaskets in there. Again, we're not going to reuse them, but I don't want to mess it up. It's nice to keep the factory stuff factory fresh. I can always put it back together if I want to. The smart thing to do is always take your aftermarket stuff and put it back to stock, but it just depends. For me, it's dependent on how the next person wants it. Okay, that one's off. Left. This side muffler's ready to come off. So you can see why if you're doing a bypass, you want to loosen the side mufflers. Oh, let go.
Smell our cold cuts over there.
Lunch is for wimps, Bryce. Go to lunch every day. I don't have time for that crap. You got work to do. Yeah, the last 3 or 4 times I've done this, I just drop the whole exhaust all out at once. That's off. And might as well take this all apart too. Okay. Let's see if we got enough room to sneak it out of here now. Okay, so there's super light titanium center exhaust. And that gets replaced by this.
this piece like this. Now, I'm going to drop the side muffler out. Now, I'm going to remove my valve. So that's a good 40, 35, 40. I think they're like 42 pounds a piece or something like that. So that gets replaced with this. Quite a bit different. So let's take our other side muffler off. This time let's pull our vacuum line off first. You want to get some people mad at me, Bryce? You know the main reason why I wanted this over the other one? Carbon fiber sway bars.
Oh yeah, you can actually see them.
Carbon fiber sway bars. I keep having this. Do you see any? Are there any shipping blocks still in the springs? I keep having this. I keep waking up like in the middle of the night thinking the shipping blocks are still on the springs and not handling as well because of that. So yeah, it would also be a little easier if you do take the intake tubes off. I think we did that on Adams. Just want to be careful. I don't want to damage the whatever you call that thing, the gasket. So there's a side muffler number 2. That's it for disassembly. So you can see, rather high flowing. So where Dundon gets power, the Dundon stuff, is they bring it up, they change the length and do some harmonics tuning. They tune for gas pressures and frequency. And so there's quite a bit of difference in output. This exhaust is much simpler. And so I think both are viable. It just depends on what you're looking for. So a lot of people are probably asking, why in the world are you doing this? Why are you messing with this, doing it twice? So and the answer for that is, I say, why not? So I think I'm going to take this bracket off. I might be able to take it off after the fact.
In the chassis.
Yeah. All right, we're going to leave this on. So let's put our side mufflers on loosely. We'll put this on loosely, hold this in place. It's a one-person job, Bryce. Don't help me.
Okay.
Don't help me.
I won't help.
I don't want anybody knowing that I'm getting help. Seriously, though, you can very easily do this with one person if you aren't stupid like me. I think I've got this on backwards. That's a little more like it there, buddy. That's why it's on backwards. That's why they put the bolt in this way. I just want this loose enough just to hold it in place. Or tight enough so it holds it in place. So this, you need a workbench. I know. It's funny, this is a 997 part.
What is?
This 997.
Oh, that band?
Yeah.
It's pretty old.
Yeah.
I guess if it works, don't mess with it.
Yeah. You want it to hold it on there, but loose enough to where you can move it around.
Looks a little whopper job there, Matt.
You learn about new words watching my editing videos back?
Watching those and then Ed and Mike like, what? No, that's cattywampus. You're like, no, that's a dumb.
That's a dumb word. Stick with me, Bryce. I'll lead you down the right word paths. So there's a little valve in there. Stout little valve there. Let's put this in here. Maybe I can at least get it started. I don't know if this will fit on here now. Yeah, I'm a freaking idiot. Doing it this way, I think just makes it a little easier.
from a one-man perspective, because if I put it together on the ground, then I'd have to try to hold it up here in one piece, but this just seems to work. Okay, that'll hold that on there well enough. Then we're going to take this and just slide all of our things on. I'll just set these here. And then hopefully this fits a little better than the last time. Good. Yeah, the last one that I did on the .1, I was talking about how great AWE was at their pipe fitting, and then I couldn't get it to go in. So you obviously need to make sure that you won't see any leaks. And then we need to center it from left to right. That's what I'll do, is I'll measure this and get the center of that. So I'm going to end up pulling these back, because I don't think I want that. I think I'm going to try to not put these on. So I'll pry that back afterwards, I think. Okay. This is actually a pretty decent. This piece here is actually pretty centered. 872 millimeters. So we need to go 40 plus 3. Looks like I'm pretty eyeballed pretty well. Don't see any air on either side. So I'm going to tighten these up a bit. Just enough where it still moves, but it'll at least hold it in place. Just to get everything lined up. Okay. That's where it needs to sit. So they are supposed to point up a little bit. It's going to need to sit right there. See what I'm doing? I'm just kind of, so it'll sit the same height on both sides. Looks pretty good. How does our center look? Looks pretty spot on. Looks pretty good to me, huh? That'll hold us in place. Which way do I like this? I think that'll look best like that. Can I get to it like that? Yeah, I think I can. Just up through here, yeah. I think that'll be best pointed up. Way we won't see it. Problem is, I'm gonna have to go at a slight angle here. I'm gonna need
a short socket.
Yeah, but it's gonna get long. See what I'm saying? These suckers are gonna be like 3 feet long. I love how this is a super stout. Like I don't like the resonant frequency. I don't like how titanium sounds. Never have. Always loved titanium. Just that any titanium exhaust I've ever got, I've always ended up punting, because they never sound as stout, as meaty as stainless. That's what's so intriguing about Dundon. The Dundon exhaust is T321 stainless, instead of this is just 3 or 4. It's a little bit of a pain putting the AccuSeals this way, but looks prettier. Oh, don't let me forget I had to take these brackets off. I don't have to, but I'm going to. while we're under here, while the car's in the air, I'm probably gonna change the oil. I think we can skip the change the oil video because I've already done it on this car 4 or 5 times on the channel. I like to make these tight. No exhaust leaks on my straight piped exhaust. Freaking dum-dums. Let's see, that's pretty tight. Get out of here. I don't have any student loans.
I keep getting calls about my car's warranty expiring. I was like, what? I'm like, no.
So now, you gotta make sure that doesn't hit the valve or the tray down here. Hiding these suckers makes it 10 times harder, but jeez. How long do I have to keep going? See, that's why I don't think these aren't really all that necessary. Okay, so now I'm gonna put a big thing of channel locks on here just to pull this back. Still looks centered. Before I forget, let's put our vacuum lines on. That's fine. Okay. Valves are good. So I'm going to leave these here in case I decide to put them on, but I just want to bend them back out of the way. So this is not advisable, but I think that this is going to be the way to go. Keep us from having chassis resonance. Yeah. That's never going to move. Neither one of those is moving. That's stout, man.
The reason I think they would put that on there is just to keep weight off the headers. That's all I could think of. Because if they get hot enough, you know, you don't want that weight.
Yeah.
Because this bracket isn't holding on to anything anymore. That's the only thing I could think of why they would do that.
Yeah, like I said, none of the other bypasses connect there, or very few of them. So,
Forget about your bracket.
yeah. All right, so take a little WD-40, wipe off all my fingerprints. This is usually what triggers a lot of people, but why would you not take 10 seconds on your $3,000 exhaust to wipe off all your fingerprints so you don't end up with them permanently on your steel piping as it burns in. So the little modification of pulling those back, I'll be sure to update you on that. And again, the reason why I did that is because I found that on my dot 1 had some chassis resonance, and I'm assuming that's what it was. And so that's why I'm doing this way, and we'll see how it goes. Sorry to my friends at AWE for modifying their modification, but I'm going to take these brackets off so that they're out of the way. And then I figured we'd time lapse us putting this back together because it goes back together. The bumper goes back on the same way it came off. And then we'll put our tips on. We'll come back to you and do our tips. I'm going to find some real good twinkle music.
Oh, you used to tell it at determined time and now it's wrong.
I don't like my tip sticking out. Kyle got bumped again. We'll have to do you next week. You got to get your email dialed before we can do your exhaust. That's the.
We're down to like.
That's the deal. Looks pretty straight.
Straight pipe?
No.
That's favorite.
I'm not a freaking baby. You imagine having your entire YouTube channel called that?
Hey, I like those guys. I'll say that.
Yeah, well, I like them too, but their name is dumb. My very first AWE install, the tip shot off the back and went flying down the road on my Carrera S. Let's hope we don't do that on this one. You know, it's bending, so I think we're good on this one. Okay, we got a little WD. Got to change the plate real quick. See, you can't have 9K flat 6 if your car revs to 8,800. So now we're back to 9K. So we can go back to the 9K, and I can get rid of the Freemasons plate. This one was going to go on the shelf in the office. I don't really like these caps, but I can never get the darn things to look right, so we're going to stay with caps.
I feel like I put myflorida.com on the plate. So just put Florida, man. Let's see. Crap.
Is that the plate from the office? Or?
No, it's a new one.
You put a space in this one, right?
Yep. This one took me 3.5 hours to get because I said, yeah, I want it together. And then I'm like, you know what? After she was done, I was like, you know, I think it needs a space. She gave me like the roll of the eyes.
Kill you.
She's like, oh my word, you moron.
I see this guy again.
She was super nice. I didn't have a hundo to palm her though. I should have.
See, that's like old Matt right there. And Matt's that old. He's that guy going to the Best Buy because he's so old he don't know how to do anything. Best Buy even exists anymore. He's gonna be palming people like 20s around Best Buy.
By then it'll be like $400 inflation. Come on, don't do this to me. There we go. Okay. Yeah. It's legit. Put the lights in. Fire this bad boy up. I'll wash it tonight. Anything under there?
No. I didn't even see you check, so I was like, oh, I better look.
So on the tail lights, you still have to line them up. So that there's a little bit of adjustment room. So you could push it all the way over and it looks funky. So you want it like right on the edge. Let's put it on the ground. See if it works. I don't know what happened to our limit switch. It just stopped working. Man, I need to stop buying American cars and just stick with what I love, which is Porsches and BMWs, and specifically Porsches. So, AWE exhaust. I'll have interior, exterior footage coming, and probably, I don't know if I'll do it this weekend, but give me at least a week from this video. But got the proper plate back on the car. We'll see. I'll be sure to update you on keeping it disconnected from that H plate, or I guess it's a, I don't know what it is, with J plate or whatever you want to call it, that would hold the center section tight to the chassis. I think it's going to be better without that, assuming it doesn't droop, or I'll check the tightness of all the fittings and clamps next time, probably when I change the oil. But this is a great exhaust option. This is my favorite basic option. I wouldn't call it entry level because it's still, you know, quite expensive, but for less than $3,000, you drop a lot of weight off the car. We gain a lot of amplitude. Very minimal drone on this. Now, I haven't driven it with the .2 yet, but on my .1, very minimal drone, but pleasant drone. It's not real resonant. Doesn't bother you a ton, but makes the car sound like it looks. And that's the key.
And of course, another variant of the exhaust would be to go full headers, whether catted or catless, and then do the same thing with a side muffler and center muffler delete. That's you're talking 5 figures, $10, $11, $12,000 to do something like that versus 3. So I think this is a great option. I'm going to drive around like this for a little while, and then the great part about my life as a car guy on YouTube is it benefits me to do something different. And so I'll put the Dundon on. I want to do the Dundon plenum, the Dundon intake, and probably do the Dundon exhaust later on. But I love this variant. I'll probably do the spring event in the mountains with this exhaust, and then maybe come summertime I want Charles and Jamie to come out and shoot a video, and then we'll have some really good differences between the two exhausts, because again, this isn't for everyone, Dundon isn't for everyone, but I think the two of them can meet all the needs of all of us for an exhaust, if you want something a little less tame than a center bypass. So anyway, more GT3 footage coming up here, specifically exterior and interior exhaust stuff, but full correction coming. This is the first time I think I've done an aftermarket exhaust before I paint corrected it. So anyway, catch you on the next one. Thanks for watching. As always, stay tuned for more crazy.
Let me get down here, Matt. Good?
Good.
My left ear is a little hurting, but it's okay. Thank you.